Rod Blagojevich was twice elected governor of Illinois. He was a golden boy in the Democratic Party, mentioned actually for the presidency. And then he was ensnared in a kind of political hit, launched sort of by the Obama establishment in Illinois. He served time in prison, and his sentence was commuted by President Trump. I've been looking forward to having Rod Blagojevich on this podcast. I'm delighted he's able to join us. Rod, it's really great to have you. Thank you for coming on the show. We talked shortly after President Trump commuted your sentence, and I remember you were just really excited because you were just playing with your dog, and you made the comment that just the simple domestic act of having fun with a pet was something that was giving you the greatest. It was very touching for me to hear, and I identified with it because in prison you are sort of cut off from society. And I hope that the last year, the country's been in sort of a shutdown, but I hope that you've been enjoying domestic life and enjoying the things that matter most.
I really have, Dinesh, and thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, it's been a blessing. I've been home now for a little over a year, and wouldn't have happened had it not been for President Trump. What he did, reaching into to rescue a Democratic governor, was something he didn't have to do, didn't benefit him at all politically, but he saw something that was wrong and he stopped it. And the blessing, of course, for me is to finally, after 8 long years of sheltering in place in prison, by the way, for things that aren't crimes, for routine political conversations, I've enjoyed this past year, as you can imagine, and you hit it exactly right. It's the smallest things that you never really noticed before, that once you've been through something like that, you've returned home, you really not only notice them, but you really appreciate them. Even the simplest things, like you say, snuggling with one of our little dogs here in the house has been a real blessing. And I do it a lot. And I think it's partly because I've been starved for affection all those years.
Now, when the political kind of hit went down on you, this was presented as you were, caught in a ring of elaborate corruption. Of course, the center of the accusation was that you were somehow trying to, quote, sell the Senate seat. We're talking now about Obama's Senate seat that he vacated when he ran for president. But in fact, something else was going on, right? Why don't you say in your own words what this fight was really all about?
Well, there's several aspects to it. Let me just start out by quoting Winston Churchill. He said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on." To this day, Dinesh, I'm still trying to put my pants on. The sale of the Senate seat was a big lie, just like Russian collusion was a big lie that they tried to put on President Trump. That's done by design. These people, these corrupt prosecutors who are out to do political persecutions and political hit jobs, they're clever. It's almost like they hire a Madison Avenue agency to come up with slogans that catch the imagination of the people. That so-called sale of the Senate seat was the result of conversations that were initiated by then President-elect Obama. He sent an emissary to me to talk about political deals. Nothing untoward about that. It's routine in politics. President Obama didn't do anything wrong when he did that. I didn't. But they came after me for whatever their motivation was. I wouldn't give in. I fought back, and they were able to convict me at a second trial by using an unlawful standard. They couldn't convict me at a first trial on their fake corruption charges, so they moved the line and applied a standard to me that if it were applied to every other governor, every senator, every congressman, every president, they too would have gone to prison because it was fundraising with no quid pro quo. And on the sale of the Senate seat, the appellate court eventually reversed that. They understood that was what they called routine political log rolling. They also understood that if they upheld that standard, government would shut down everywhere, because that's how government works. It's the give and take of politics and government horse trading.
Let's look at the so-called smoking gun statements that you allegedly made. At one point, you were saying they got you on tape saying, "I've got this thing." You described the seat as, quote, golden, and you said, "I'm just not giving it up for nothing." Now, I suppose that can be interpreted in two completely different ways. Well, one way would be to say that this is somehow a property that you own, that you're putting up for sale. You're not giving it up in that sense. But it's very easy to see the other interpretation, which is, hey guys, listen, I'm the governor. I'm actually the guy who has some say in this. So the idea that I'm just going to let you decide, in other words, let Obama decide who's going to be his, quote, successor, you wanted to have an active role in that. And that, as you say, is part of the political, I suppose it's naked political jostling, but happens every day in America.
Well, not only that, I think I would have been it would have been irresponsible of me to not follow up with the overture by President-elect Obama. You have to understand, Dinesh, that conversation that you're referring to was a Wednesday, the very day after President Obama was elected president. We were all there here in Chicago. I was there. President Obama and Michelle Obama, the children, 500,000 people. It was a historic event. And the very next, I was approached that night by a labor leader telling me that Barack, he said, called him the night before, wants to talk to you about discussing the Senate seat and making a political deal. And so the next day was a Wednesday. I remember vividly saying that. I just got done running about 8 miles. I was sweaty, laying on the floor, talking to one of my advisors. And I said, they want to make a deal on the Senate seat. He wants Valerie Jarrett. I have to tell you, this is, and I'll quote myself, but I'll modify it, effing golden. I didn't say golden. This is effing golden. I'm not giving it up for nothing. Now, here's what these corrupt people did to me. They don't play the rest of the tape, because the rest of the tape, if it were to say, I want $10 million in a Swiss bank account, you got me. That's a crime. I ought to go to prison for 14 years. But that was never the case. I joked about my nephew turning 30 and I could give him a Senate seat if, for a birthday gift, which I, of course, never intended to do. But what they did was they took snippets of conversations. They took the ugliest portions of them, took them out of context, and they did what they did. And they were able to then get convictions after 2 trials, because they could never allow me to get away free, because what they did was they hijacked a governor twice elected by the people. They're the criminals. They broke the law, and that's why the whole deal was whitewashed, and that's why I've been so blessed, because President Trump, who'd have thought my last line of defense, a Republican president, would be the one to undo or at least put an end to that grievous injustice. I broke no laws. I crossed no lines. I wouldn't give in to what those bullies, those extortion artists wanted me to do and say. I wouldn't take the light sentence they were dangling if I said some of those things, and I fought them. And because I exercised my rights as an American citizen to fight for my innocence and seek a jury trial and go to 2 jury trials, this is what they did. And this is what they tried to do to President Trump, some of the same people using the same playbook.
Is it not a fact that the tapes that you're referring to, the tapes that in context you say provide not only context, but a kind of exoneration, because it's very clear that you weren't selling anything, there was no price tag, no money was going to end up in your pocket. Is it not a fact that those tapes to this day have not been publicly released, and why is that?
Because it's corrupt, because they're whitewashing the corrupt acts that they did when they stole the governor from the people of Illinois. It's too explosive, I think, if they were to show what was actually done here. And so therefore, they've sacrificed me on the altar of these prosecutors who, as I said, not only were extortion artists when it came to me, but they were basically pointing guns at the other political leaders because they're afraid of these people. Now, you're right. They played 2% of the tapes at the trial. They wouldn't allow us to play the tapes we sought to play at the trial. I was promised that if I agreed to testify, I could play the tapes and back up my testimony. But after I got on the stand to do that, they wouldn't allow the tapes to be played. I was allowed something like 3 or 5 tapes. There were hundreds of hours, maybe 600 hours of tape recordings. They taped me for 6 months. I wanted every tape played publicly and in court so the public can hear the full truth of what was being said. At least give me the tapes to fill out the context of the ones they were using against me. To this day, they don't allow it. They've got a seal order on it by the courts. And it's a massive cover-up, because the tapes will show that I've been telling the truth all along, and these prosecutors took snippets of conversations out of context, and even them by themselves, by the way. This is effing golden. I'm not giving it up for nothing. By itself, there's no crime there. That's just dumb talk. The fact is, it was a political hit job, as you say, and they covered it up by covering up those tapes, which I still can't play today.
When we come back, I want to dive into life in prison, but I also want to talk about Trump, and I want to talk about the Democratic Party, past and present. We'll be right back.